Hey, what's up, guys? I hope you can hear me all right. I'm running a fan and an air conditioner in here so I don't melt. I think a while back maybe I went over this. I don't think I really got into in depth about explaining how to use a soldering iron to repair your magazine or any of the polymer parts on your jaws or Blackbird. But something that can happen, and there's quite a few of these out there, is that when you do the chip mod and add voltage like 3 14500s, you up the voltage from 9 to 12 volts, you're gonna end up tearing up the inside of your magazine where especially if you're running high pressure air. What happens is when you've got the auger spinning, it's a spring over the metal shaft, and the spring is the only thing that really turns around the shaft. And at the output end, the spring just terminates in a sharp end. Well, when you're shooting and you don't get a BB in every single slot on that spring, what will happen is the spring will compress in the empty slot, and that will make the end of the spring rub against the inside of the polymer, and it's quite often that you're going to get missed slots on your auger. And when it misses a slot, it bends the spring in the middle of it or wherever, and it actually moves down the spring. So as it moves down the spring, it makes the end of the spring wobble, and it just wallers out the hopper right at the output end of the auger. And what will eventually happen is it'll waller it out so far that a BB will be allowed to pass past the shoulder that holds it in, one of the lips on either side of the auger that the BBs run in, that keep them in a straight line. It'll go off of that line and go under the auger, push the auger up, and break the auger retainer, which is just a little tiny ear of polymer right there at the end of the auger shaft that holds it in. So that's what happened to this hopper. I've already made that repair, but I need to make a little repair on the back of it because it looks like it went to a 4-year-old's birthday party and played the donkey. And one of these holes, this hole right here, isn't quite where I need it to put the latch plate I just made on it. So we're just going to fill that hole in, and I'll talk at you while I'm doing that. Alright, first things first, what we want to do to begin with is make sure it's completely free of any grease. So I'm going to do the best I can and clean that hole out with rubbing alcohol. Need something a little smaller than a Q-tip to do that, but you also want to clean all around it, because as you're using the soldering iron, you're going to be pushing the plastic around, so you might not just be at the hole, you definitely be around it. Let me try to find something to get the inside of that hole a little better. It's not really advisable that you do this with just any soldering iron. You really need to be able to control the temperature of it. You don't want to get the plastic above the smoke point. I'm not really exactly sure what that is for nylon. I'm assuming this is something like PA6, like a nylon with 20% fiberglass in it. So they usually use about 240 degrees C. I haven't done a lot with this new soldering iron. As far as that goes. So 240 worked really well with my other one. I've got this on 240 now. I did do all the inside of it. 240 with this one seems slower than the other one. So it's kind of like TIG welding. You don't want to have any voids in there. You want to make sure that you get good contact with the housing. Yeah, you get voids in there and it'll just snap. And you get it too hot and it'll just make it weak. So I'm using a little zip tie, and it might not necessarily say if your zip ties are nylon or not, but most of them are, if not all of them. It doesn't really matter for strength if you use a different color than black. What I'm doing right now is I'm just trying to get a big puddle, and that way I'm sure that everything melts to the hopper. Because I'm going to be drilling through part of this patch. And you can also certainly use different tips to get, depending on what your job is. We might swap out at the end of this just so I can show you something towards the end. What I'm doing right now, just moving it, pushing the material back in the hole as I go, and that's helping bond it to the polymer. Alright, I'll go ahead and switch my tip out. So a tip like this, chisel point, it'll help you smooth things over. And yeah, sometimes it's hard to get all the solder off. I guess I could if I had a wet paper towel. But we're going to continue that method of moving it around for a minute. Now we're going to smooth it. I don't have to get super clean with this job because it's already fucked. And the latch plate is going to be covering most of this repair. As long as it works. It just depends on if you're going for cosmetics or function or both. You don't want to leave it in one spot when you're doing this. And multiple passes like this heats it up evenly to help prevent gouging it. And then now I'm going to go this way. Hard to do this with you looking over my shoulder. I just feel a little raised spot there. It's just something you got to get a feel for. And this is where you can move around the polymer. If you feel it's on a little in a hot spot, just put more heat into it, and then you can move it around easier. That's good enough. All right, guys, let's go, Peter. Later.